The shortest version of what the Fed does is not what's on their page. The shortest version of what the Fed does is they are able to print money, loan it out, and create more money with absolute freedom. And normally you're supposed to have something backing your currency, and it could be goods and services, it could be gold and silver, it could be capital, it could be anything. But the Fed just simply prints money. They take and the government wants $1 billion for some war. The Federal Reserve just prints them the $1 billion at interest, but all the Fed did was put it on their balance sheet as $1 billion. So where did that money come from? Well, it didn't. They just printed it out of thin air. That's essentially what the Fed is able to do now because of the Federal Reserve Act. Before you had banks, and banks are legitimate businesses. Loans are legitimate businesses. I think that people should be able to collect fair interest on loans, but the Federal Reserve prints it out of thin air. That's why we want to end the Fed. We don't want to end the Fed is a bunch of private banking cartels, right? I mean, it's essentially a banking cartel of private business. So we don't want to end the private business. For all intents and purposes, I could care less about ending the cartel itself. I mean, there's banana cartels out there where you have a bunch of guys out there trying to bid for bananas. I don't want to end banana cartels. I could care less on ending the diamond cartels, although that's a whole other subject. But the banking cartel is the same thing. Do I want to end the banking cartel? Well, maybe, but that's not what End the Fed is about. End the Fed is about ending the Federal Reserve's stranglehold on our money system. So what we do is we renationalize our treasury. We print the money ourselves. That doesn't mean we have to end the actual banks, because the Federal Reserve System, or what's considered the check clearinghouse, this is what's on their website, by the way, about what the Fed does, that is all privately maintained. You take a check in one bank and you can clear it in another bank. That's what the Federal Reserve is supposed to do. Let that still continue, whatever. I mean, they'll make money off that. They make money off interest. They make money on banks clearing checks back and forth with each other. That's all being handled. But what we need to do is we need to be able to print our money to pay our bills without interest. So that's what we need to end. We need to end the Federal Reserve's hold of our treasury. We need to nationalize, or might I say renationalize, because until 1913 we didn't have a Federal Reserve. We printed our own money. They're called U.S. notes. I mean, if you just simply look at old U.S. notes before 1913, that's what they used to say. They didn't say Federal Reserve note, they said U.S. note. JFK was printing U.S. notes, for instance. Okay, I wonder what got him killed. That's a whole other subject. But we need U.S. notes. That's the bottom line. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to end the Fed. We want to end the Federal Reserve's control over our monetary system. We'll print the money. We'll have. There's all kinds of discussions about the LIBOR rate and all kinds of discussions of these bankers manipulating interest rates and stuff like that. There's going to always be crooks and criminals out there. I'm not so much concerned about that because I think the system has always been built in with crooks and criminals built into the system. And I know that's going to happen. So we do need to clean those people out, but they're always going to exist, so we can't remove them from the system. I would actually rather say, we have our banking system under the Federal Reserve. We have a what's it called? The Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC. There's a name for that. I think it's the FOMC, but essentially they set certain rates and they set monetary policy. a lot of that could still be done by the Federal Reserve Board. It could still be done by people who are outside of the normal political system. But as long as we print our own money, the United States, and as long as we control how much currency there is, and as long as the money that we pay our bills with is not a debt instrument, then we'll be able to work everything else out. We just can't be burdened by debt currency anymore. It's that simple.